How does short-run aggregate supply explain today's economic news? Imagine a busy marketplace where prices are changing and sellers are deciding how much to produce. That's similar to what happens in the economy with short-run aggregate supply. Today's economic news often shows shifts in prices, production levels, and employment, and understanding short-run aggregate supply helps explain these changes. Short-run aggregate supply is the total amount of goods and services producers are willing to supply at different price levels during a period when some input costs, like wages or raw materials, can't change immediately. The key point is that in the short run, at least one factor of production stays fixed in price. For example, if workers have long-term wage contracts, their wages stay the same even if the economy changes. The short-run aggregate supply curve slopes upward. This means that when prices go up, firms want to produce more because they can make higher profits. When prices fall, firms produce less because their profit margins shrink. This is similar to how microeconomic supply works but applies to the entire economy. Understanding this helps explain why economic news often shows prices rising while output increases. If consumer demand grows and prices rise, firms respond by producing more. But if input costs like oil or raw materials go up suddenly, production costs increase. This causes the short-run aggregate supply curve to shift leftward, meaning firms are willing to produce less at every price level. This shift can lead to cost-push inflation, where prices rise because of higher costs rather than increased demand. On the other hand, if technology improves or resource prices fall, the short-run aggregate supply curve shifts rightward. This means firms can produce more at each price level, helping to keep inflation in check while increasing output and employment. Short-run aggregate supply also helps us understand business cycles. During economic expansions, rising demand pushes prices higher and encourages firms to produce more and hire more workers. During contractions, falling demand lowers prices and reduces production, leading to job losses. When supply shifts leftward due to higher resource costs, it can cause stagflation, where inflation rises but unemployment also increases. Today's economic news often shows supply chain disruptions or energy price shocks. These are examples of supply shocks that shift the short-run aggregate supply curve leftward, causing prices to rise even if demand isn't growing. Conversely, technological advances or falling input prices shift the curve rightward, allowing the economy to grow without inflation. It's important to distinguish between movements along the curve, which happen when prices change, and shifts of the entire curve, which happen when underlying factors like costs or technology change. Most short-term changes in the economy are due to these shifts, which are what policymakers try to influence with different policies. In short, understanding short-run aggregate supply helps explain why prices and output fluctuate in the economy. It shows how supply-side factors and external shocks influence current economic conditions, making it a vital tool for interpreting today's economic news.